Lovely stream. This is Trek Wars and Fantasy. I hope everybody's having a good day. So I'm going to be streaming about world building. You will find hopefully you'll find this useful, and I will get onto a proper conversation in a minute. I'm just going to get a few photos up for myself. I'm going to give a chance for people to get into chat. So basically my conversation is going to be about how do you sort your world. How do you get inspirations about your fantasy or sci-fi worlds or modern day worlds and how do you get inspiration for those worlds from the world you live in? Now, I'm going to get up a few photos and hopefully you can I will go through and hopefully you will get inspiration from that. And of course everything goes wrong to start with, because that what happens. So let me get this down. So most D&D campaigns start in a tavern, so why not start with a tavern now, which is this current tavern called the Buller's Arms. Now, with this one, this could be any pub you come across, any world you think. It's like, why is your, the best thing is to say, why is your pub or bar or tavern, inn, cantina, whatever it is, why is it placed where it is? Is it because it's the centre of the village or the centre of the town like this one? Is it because it's on the main thoroughfare through the town? That could be a reason. It could be a reason like you're travelling overland and it's about the distance between, or distance that a horse can travel in one day, so you will have a stopping off point, maybe with some hotels. That's very modern, but if you've got a modern campaign, it could be a hotel with a bar. 11 miles down the road from me is one of these generic hotels with a bar. I think they called it the Liscar Tavern, and it's one of these ones like the Holiday Inn, or it's not Novotel, but it's one of these generic companies that you have in the UK. Now, maybe when you're coming up with a tavern, you may have multiple ones in one place. You may just have one in that location, but maybe on yours you would have various things on it, including on this one, including the signage. So like on the left hand side of the building there, you've got the name, you've got what it says it does. So got a dining room. It also mentions patron parking to the rear. Okay, D&D you won't have car parking, but you may have a horse. Are they going to have stables at the back for you to put your horse overnight, or somewhere where you can tie your horse up for a little bit of time? Yeah, maybe, why not? Or think about it, if it doesn't have something like that, it's probably not a location for travellers. Most of them can walk, so the reason for it may be the pub being there or living there is for local people. So they just go there. Why do they go there? Just to be social, maybe. Have a conversation, talk to a man about a dog, maybe. Get your quest. It also could be something about the water's not well, so they have to have the Yoko to have a decent drink, or a safe drink. So that could be the reason. Now, on this one thing also to note, on the front of the building, between the two lower windows on the left hand side, there's a notice board. You could have various missions for this, or it could be information about stuff being sold in that area. For example, it could say if you want to get clothes repaired, you could have the name of somebody like that, or for example, whatever works for your world. Now, also in this picture, there's the typical English pub sign in the front. Maybe something like that would be a way of showing you that it is a pub. So for those who don't read, there is an image you could have on there to make it very inviting, to say this is where this is a location. You could have a sleep overnight, or you could have a drink, whichever. It's also think if your tavern's got a name or a sign, what is it? Could it be a meaning behind that? Now, let's say in the Star Wars world, what if you had one called the Slug and Lettuce and one called the Golden Hut? Both of these could be, depending on how you look at it, could be derogatory terms. So this could be reasons you could maybe know this is a area, a pub or cantina as it is in Star Wars, that you want to go if you're not a fan of the Huts. Now, if it had a more favourable name, like the Glorious Huts Cantina, you may be not wanting that to be quite as, you probably don't want to go in there and bad mouth a hut. So why not? Now, I did mention the locations of taverns and pubs earlier. Something that you think about is who's its niche market. Is it going to be the only place for that area, or the first building in that area, and it's getting everybody near it? Possibly you could have it on a road coming into town where it'll be the first traveller in will be there. So that's going, oh look, I need a break, I need somewhere, and you're just going to pick the first hotel or the first tavern that you get to. That may be a bit more expensive because it's going to have those people who can't be bothered to go and find something cheaper. Also, in this case, you find it's like near the church. It's also, I know, near a shop, and what used to be a couple of shops a few years back. There's also near what was the some of the old other facilities, like maybe near a tanner's. I know this is near a former blacksmith's building. So usually these things are all congregated together. If it's not, again, why isn't it concreted? Is that because this is, why isn't it? Is there a reason behind that? But possibly. If you can answer that for your thing, it's your thing, your story. That's why it's there. So it's got to have a reason to be there. It could be on the main, as I said, the main junction coming in. Now, I think I've talked about this a fair amount. Now, let's go to my second picture, which again, whatever. My words are all over the place, and I'm just going to adjust my settings so I can actually size this better rather than the picture behind, which is what I was trying not to resize. The joy of technology and having to learn something new that's not just press a button and hope it all works. Pressing many buttons and hoping it all works. Now, this one here, as you can tell, a good old-fashioned British telephone box, as well as another board with information on. So again, I'll quickly go over that. The board, you can put on whatever information you think is relevant to your mission, your stories, your world. You could have prices of products from certain shops. You can say something like what times the transport's leaving. You could have, is this a Star Trek universe, what time the next ship to Bajor from Deep Space Nine is. But of course those will be electronic boards probably, but if it was down in Bajor, maybe they've got their version of one of those boards, which is doing it an old-fashioned way for whatever reason. Now, if you look carefully at this telephone box, it's not being currently used as a telephone box. Now, this makes me think, is there things in your world that is not being used for its original purpose? And could you fit something in your world that can be changed or be something different? So this one here is a little library at the moment, and it's also had some games in there which people can exchange, take some of the stuff for free, put stuff in there. Now, in, let's say, a D&D world, what could you have that's not, that this was could have been changed? Or thinking about it, let's think of it first. You wouldn't have had telephones as we or our grandparents knew in D&D, so what could we have instead of a telephone thing? Could we have, let's say, a magic orb in there which you use to communicate? So you go in there, doing that, you get through to an orb at another telephone box somewhere else in your world. Now, of course, you would have to have some pre-booking system with the other end saying we need to talk at the same time, but it's possible. Yeah, you could do that. You could also have a portal in there to say this is a portal through to another realm in your universe. Now, thinking about it for it being something new, like it is now, if this was in Star Trek Adventures, for example, you could be on Earth, and let's say they could have used the telephone boxes as changed it to transporters. Why not? Reusing a telephone box so you can have something a bit more of a novelty in there. Why not? not traditional Star Trek, but things get reused. As with this, it's one of the ones that didn't get knocked down. I'm sure even 30 years ago, people would have probably looked at horror to see it not being used as a telephone box. So, and there is a thing on in Britain that a load of the telephone boxes are trying to be kept saved. They did get rid of a lot because they weren't making money for obvious reasons that we've got mobile phones now. But in this one, why not use it as that? Oh, and let me think. Going to D&D, what, or Pathfinder, or something in the fantasy realm, or even, if it's a medieval one, what could you have there instead? Could it be, was it like taking off a door, a guard room? Could it be a secret doorway with some magic making it look like something else? Yeah, why not? So it's something to go by. You can give it a new look, maybe turn it into something else. So let's go on to my next thing. So this one would be a bit more interesting and even more random than my telephone box one. So yes, again I'm having the problem with that, so let's readjust this one as well. You can probably just pick out the church bit and you're probably going to guess that it's Church Street. So what's important, actually there is two things in this that's important. The first one is maybe when it comes to naming your world, some things are completely easy to come up with a name. You don't necessarily need to have a fancy name, because half the times in real world they are simple names. This is the street which you would have seen by the Buddha's Arms earlier, and as you notice on that, there was a church there. This one goes and leads up past one of the entrances to that church, Church Street. By all means, give some of your places a fancy name, but most of the time there is usually a simple name for it. Even if you do give it a fancy name that's completely made up, in your own head, in your own lore, you could have it as, that means, let's say I made up a place where Abervinzard for a town that I created. Now, I got the Aber bit from Welsh, and the other bits were completely made up to my knowledge. Now, I've decided that the Vin part of it is reference to the hills, so it was like the Vin Hills. So Aber, I was going to have, excuse me a second, was going to be reference a river, and Zard, I can't, to be honest, I can't remember, and sorry for me not doing my research on my own word that I created a while back, so yes, apologise, but you get the meaning. Now the second bit in this that I think is interesting, if you notice under Sturt, you probably have not already noticed, under Church Street is Stret and Eglos. Now that will be Church Street in Cornish. So thinking about your worlds, how does it interact with all the various languages that the species that you have in there see? Is your world basically going to be English for the humans, Elven for the elves, Northern for the dwarves, and your towns are just literally those, so they're all going to be like that. Which is fair enough. If they're all like that, it's not really an issue. But maybe if you have a world where you have cities or countries or empires where there is multi-species, and for the ones who read, what are there signs for that they can see? If it's just in a human language and you don't see any other language, what do the elves and the orcs and the dwarves think about that? Do they have an issue with that? Now, is your city very multicultural and they have various signs in various different languages? So, like you would find in the UK, in, let's say, Northern Ireland, Cornwall, Wales, Scotland, and other places in England, or Quebec, for example, in Canada. Do you have things in different languages? Now, I was also think about maybe is part of your who can actually read these signs. Is it just the upper class? Is it just going to be like the adventurers, or think so? The written word may be just reverting to who's in charge. So if you think about it, this is just advertising to the rich or the power, the elite people there. So you could probably get the players characters as you walk through the area may get the impression of what the world or who is in charge. Is it the humans? Is it the elves? Is it a bit of both? Now, you could also think about it that from a business perspective, if you've got a name on a shop, let's just say everybody, let's say you go in the sci-fi world, again Star Trek Adventures, because it's a game I play. What are the signs, languages the signs in? Are they going to be in Klingon? Are they going to be in English or Federation Standard? Are they going to be in Vulcan? Is there going to be different languages for different places? So this place is going to be advertising to Vulcan, so you're going to have a sign in Vulcan. Is it going to be to Klingons? So it's going to be advertising Klingon. Is it going to be a language that, trying to say, like you've got a Klingon restaurant, but it is Klingon restaurant on Deep Space Nine? Are you going to put it in Federation Standard, or are you going to put it in Klingon? Yeah, the reasons for writing a certain words and having these things here might be several folds of why you're using that language or not using that language. Now, you could actually be, this could be a conflict in your world. You could use these as, let's say, a certain species has invaded another's, or this could have been years, decades, centuries ago. And are they, or even days, and could it be that they're trying to knock out the language that's spoke there and have everybody learn and be taught in their own language? So that could be a mission or a task or some kind of conflict that you could have for your characters, or at least have them if they walk into this town going, you pointed out just like it may be a subtle thing, but it's like a hint to say there could be conflict here, and there could be various other missions. Now, let me go. So I know I'm going to have problems with the next one, because there always is. So let me try to sort that out now before I open it up. But I think I'm going to have to put this one out so I can see this properly. Yay! Welcome to the best photo I've ever taken. Not. So, the main thing behind, there's various means behind this. First of all, on the left hand side, that wooden building there, with bits of glass as well, is the bus stop. I know that was a very bad pause me, and I just lost my train of thought for a second, rather than me doing it to see if you got that right. Now, how, with your transport system in your world, what do you have where people can wait? Will they be waiting? Do they get to the port and they can get directly on a ship? Or do they get to the place where you keep horses, which I've completely had a mind blank on. And if there's anybody in chat who can help me out with my stupid mind blank, please do. Now, feel free. My point is, are you going to be able to jump on your form of transport, whether it is a horse, a massive bird, or a plane, or something else straight away? What do you have there for your players to do or wait? And this may be something to go make some realism into the world. Go, your character's going to have to wait a bit until your ship has sailed in, or has had a clean up, or got rid of the passengers that's on there. Now, if you look at like World of Warcraft and in some D&D worlds, you can have massive birds. Are these animals going to need feeding before it is? Where are they staying? Do they have to stay anywhere on this stop before they carry on? So you may need buildings around to look after these. Let's say with the giant birds thing, if you're using those to fly, maybe if they're staying where you are in the location you are, maybe there could be an industry, a shop next by, who buy the eggs that these animals produce. Why not? It could add to your storyline. There could be leather workers that could produce saddles for your horses, which, as I've just remembered, usually stay in a stable. But thank God for mind blanks, they get in the way. And thank God for remembering. Now, are these... is there somewhere that makes the hooves for the horses nearby? So that could be thing. Is there a service to sell you drinks and food and stuff next to here for you while you wait? Now, also, just past there on one of the lampposts is a white sign. I know for a fact that if you can't read that, you would notice that goes, or if you can read that, you will notice that's a sign for a store's trying to stop people, get people on the main road to turn off and come and buy some stuff from their shop. And as I mentioned, was the tavern. You could have a tavern or a shop on the main road for people to stay and buy stuff from, and use, but these are going to be like service stations in the UK, more expensive. So maybe there are signs of people selling their wares that are just off the beaten track going, please come and buy my food or your food from me, or come and get your chainmail sorted out here. It's cheaper than buying it here. Now, also, luckily by complete coincidence, I've managed to get a picture of a lorry in as well. Is this road like a main transport link for lorries, or in the cases of D&D, you may have lots of carts coming up and down selling stuff. Is there any regulations when it comes to that? So there might be lots of things being brought into your town, into your village. Do you have a restriction like Rome did back in the day of Julius Caesar, and for quite a few centuries afterwards, that no carts can be driven through, or no carts for at least the purposes of bringing goods in to the city from Ostia and off the sea and off the rivers there. So those can't be done during the day because the streets got so crowded. Is there any restrictions like that? Maybe there's not, and you are just busying your way with the other traffic on the roads. Could that be part of your story, that if you're in a hurry you can get caught up between a stray cart? Now, in your world, it could be, does your world have transport links for everywhere you're going? Probably not for everywhere you're going, but there may be something. But if not, how are you going to make your way to and fro, other than walking and taking horses? You may try to come up with a reason. You could. Is it normal for people to thumb lifts from people, or buy lifts or something like this? Or, as I said before, you could have your phone box turned into a transporter, or there could be a D&D portal that some magicians created. So it's worth considering. Now, the next one, I'm going to have to do a bit of apology, other than it being misshaped like it usually is. This, for the reasons of me using OBS, I haven't managed to work how to return my pictures, to spot my pictures showing my stuff right way around normally in my screen. So what I'm going to do is again try to resize the right thing, because it would be handy if you could actually see what I was trying to resize, even though you could probably guess. So this is complete coincidence that it is also a Remembrance Day, but this is happens to be a war memorial, so near that church that we were looking at earlier by the Bull's Arms. Now, do you have such a thing in your world? If so, what is it for, and who is it to? Is it a war memorial like this one is, and could it be, and who was the war or wars against? If you walk past this and your players happen to go and it says, oh, this is the people who died from this place fighting in the Great Elven Dwarf War, and you have the names of all the dwarves there that lost their lives in the war, and you're an elf walking through this town, are you going to be looked at fondly? that would be worth considering. Are these names on here something else? Could it be people that were massacred, or was it a mining accident and these are all people in memorial to? It's all worth considering and going, how did this happen, and what do other species or other people think of this? It's something to maybe worth considering putting in your world is a memorial to something. It could be also who put it up. Did people putting it up have permission to put it up? If it was put up by the government, that's one thing, or the people that own the city. If it was put up by, let's say, the local people in the area because a load of people were massacred here by the authorities, what do the authorities think of that? Probably not much at the time, I'm going to guess. There's something to add a bit of conflict in that area where you have been brought up or going into. Now, in this picture I have got another thing that I was going to mention, but what I'm going to do is go back to this picture and goes on here. You can't actually see it, but on the church I know there is at least one clock. There's not a clock on four sides, and this is going to be roughly from a story I've heard about this church, but I don't know how true it is. Now, on the church tower does it have a clock, and how many sides is this clock on? Who is it facing to, and who can see the time? Could there be a discussion when this got made that the person who helped fund it went, I want a clock face on it, but it's got to face my house so I can see what the time is. And maybe they go, oh, okay, we're pretty nice. Let's have one on the other side so some of the villagers can see it. And then, but please, whatever you do, don't put a clock on the third side, because, well, my rival over there is a complete idiot. I hate him, and I don't want him to be able to tell the time, but he's got to make an effort to come out and see what time it is. So maybe that could be an added conflict in this area, or a hint of a conflict that you can go, oh, that's a reason to start a conflict, or at least a hint to a problem. It's not the it doesn't have to be the major thing, but it could be. So it's maybe worth considering. Now, let's go to one of my other selections, and again, this one's going to be weird. I'm going to be using all these just as examples of hints of how to get inspiration for your world. Maybe when you come around and walk around where you live and go, oh, what's this? What's its function? What could its function be? Or could this be a hint towards stuff that needs to be going on in the world? So, let's get rid of the good old Buddha's arms. And yes, that's bins. Now, why have I got bins? Well, in the place that I live, that's where we get rid of some of our rubbish. Now, what happens in the rubbish in your world? Is there bins? Is it in Star Trek Adventure? You put it back into the replicator, or if anybody does litter on the floor, somebody's cleaning it up because there's cleaners. In D&D, what happens with your rubbish in your fantasy world? Does it just get chucked on the floor? Does it get chucked in the river? Is it just there for rats and mice to pick up? Is there enormous dents in certain areas because of all this rubbish? Are certain areas cleaner than others because rich people live up less in the cleaner areas because they've hired out people to clean the rubbish? Are there people coming and collecting the rubbish? Is there a sewer system? If so, what stuff goes in the sewer? What stuff do people collect? How often do they collect? It may be all worth considering and going, what kind of smells do your player characters have when they walk through this area? It's not much, but it is something to consider. Now, I'm going through these rather quickly, so I'll have to think of something else to do after this, but my last one, okay, this is not quite the green village, or it wasn't that green, but your village that you had earlier. This is going to a city. Okay, it's not Hong Kong or New York or London, but it's a city nonetheless. Now, while I'm just trying to sort out the resizing for this, I will try to remember what have a conversation while I'm doing this. So, my hint is here is twofold. A, what happens behind the main street, behind the buildings, and B, again, as I mentioned with the delivery lorry earlier, was a bus stop example. Where do the deliveries come? Now, along these where these bins are, is a loading line. It's gradually worn out over time and many repairs, but that's where the delivery for these shops here and hairdressers, etc., have to be done. And I think there's even at least one restaurant amongst those buildings as well. So, do the deliveries have to come there, or can they go to the front of the building? In this case, they're not allowed to go to the front of the building, or at least during certain times. They have to come to the back here. Was that maybe to stop all the people from running people over on the streets, or it gets too crowded there if you had various lorries around there? Because I know not these buildings, but just over the road from there are a couple of big stores, including a big department store, which I won't remember its mention its name, but it also sells food. But on those ones, you've got a lot of people hanging around, walking by, and they put the lorries out the back, around the back, so you can don't have to worry about people moving it around, and less chance of people running over, getting in the way and running over things. So that is my chat about things that can influence you, hopefully, in your world building. So, hopefully, you can think of where do the deliveries come from, or on your world. Is this the same stuff coming off the boat? Is that left to late at night, or is that done during the day? Are these people in your way? Are you in your way as you're walking around the street? Are they liable to run you over accidentally on the way? Are they? What happens with the mess in the city? Is it worth what happens to it? What? Yeah, etc., etc. Now, again, what happened? Is there any memorials? Who is it to? Is that going to be important to your characters, or is it going to be part of a story, a part of a conflict? That's yeah. So is it going to hint a character to that they may be in trouble if their elven ears are showing, or that you realise that this person is human or a dwarf. Are they going to have to hide their features? Or, and then there, what about the transport for the area? What's going to be happening with that? So, again, how are you going to get to be around there? What is built around this transport device? Are you going to have it like a big industrial airport where there's lots of restaurants, lots of people trying to sell you alcohol and big Swiss chocolate bars? So that might be worth considering. This one I think is probably the one that you could, in my opinion, could have the most fun with. Or not fun, the more story impacting on your culture is the languages. Is there multiple signs? Is the name originally an elven city, but it has humans in now? Is this all an issue? Is there conflicts, or are they a united settlement? So you can feel safe if you've got multi-languages written everywhere. Or who's trying to direct you or sell you stuff by what language this is in? So if it's an elven on the shop front, they may be trying to sell to the elves. Or, as I said, if it's has Klingon writing on it and it's a restaurant, it makes it more authentic that maybe if you wanted to go and have Klingon foods on Earth. Then, so, and again, there's my other one. So, is there an old device that can have new use in your world? Think about it. So, this one's a library. As I said, if I put this into Star Trek Adventures, I could have it as a transporter. Why not? It could be a quaint way of doing it. It could also be, if you're having an issue in the world, it doesn't have to be a good old-fashioned English telephone box, but it could be if it. I'll get onto that in a minute. But it could be a alien's version of a telephone box, and this is your only way of transporting off the planet. So it means with a telephone box, only one of you can go to time to transport yourself on, because let's say your ship has lost its ability to transport. Now what I was going to say, actually, thinking about it, have a storyline. You head to a planet and then you find a place and it's got a red British telephone box. Think of a story behind that. That could be an interesting story to tell. There was a story on, I know, The Next Generation, which had, not quite similar, but they got to a planet and they had a hotel, and it's called the Royale. I have a feeling the episode's called the Royale as well. Now, they had to discover why it was there. That when they got down there, they had the doors to go in, but they couldn't get out. They had to work away to get off this planet, or after this, and I won't spoil it. It's not the greatest episode ever, but it actually is one of my favourite episodes. Really enjoyed it. So if you wanted a sci-fi story, I think that is a good one to get to play in, let's say, Star Trek Adventures or another sci-fi related story. Maybe you could also do this in. You could do this in a sci-fi, D&D setting maybe. Instead of watching it from the sky, you come into a area, you run into it, and you find something that you know shouldn't be there. That it is in a elven world which hasn't had any influence from the outside universe or the planet. you suddenly find a mini Dwarven town, or a Hobbit town if you're playing Lord of the Rings maybe, or Halflings if it's D&D. I think it is definitely something that you can put an adventure around. So yeah, something worth considering. And then first and definitely not least, tavern. Where is it placed? Who can go there? What do the signs say? What are they trying to sell you? What are they telling you is in here? So that could be something worth pursuing. So there we are. So those are my examples. I'm going to just do this a second, and I'm going to pause and then just come up with something else to keep you anybody who comes in going for a little longer. So I'm just going to look that up. I think I know what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go into Star Trek Adventures. As this is a world building Sunday, let's do a bit of character creation. So you've probably, no, what do I mean? You've probably heard me say that several times. But one of the games I play is Star Trek Adventures. It's my primary game at the moment. Love it to bits. It's one of my, as I said, one of my games. I'm going to go through the character creation here, and I'm going to hopefully try to sell you what it's about, and hopefully get you into this. Also, the other benefit to this is that it's going to be a way to help world build through your characters. So this is going to be more player orientated, but you can learn a lot as a DM or a GM from this. Is how do you create your world and your characters. So with the backstory is going to be something that is going to be a major thing in this, which we will hopefully find out very shortly once I've got all my bits together. So there we are, scene 2. Oh, my bad, I realised I haven't got all my bits together. I thought I had certain other bits there, so bear with me. There we are. I think we've got it. May have it now. Ooh. So yeah, there we are. This is the free character creation from Star Trek Adventures. This is the company who created it called Modifius. You can see the link up in the top, hopefully, but if you can't, all you have to do is put Star Trek Adventures character creation in. This is the first thing that comes up. So let's do. So we want to create a character. I'm not worried about talent overview at the moment. There are lots of books you can get from. You can pick lots of different characters. At the moment, I'm going to just let us have pick from the core character. Core characters. It'll be from the core rulebook. So you will play it for the there's 2 rule books. For most of it, you are playing as a Starfleet officer or somebody who serves aboard a Starfleet ship. So these will have a lot of characters, which I'll go over in a moment. You can play in 3 eras. Oh, hi. you can play in whatever era you want to. GM's decision, and if they can create whatever era they want. But the books are set up for 3 different eras. The Enterprise era, which is the NX-01, the original series era, so good old Captain Kirk and Spock. The Next Generation era, so that's Next Generation was Picard, Voyager with Janeway, and DS9 with Ben Sisko. Why did I have a problems? Remember that, because that's my favourite series. We're going to go with the TNG era. It's one of my favourite ones, and it does give us a couple of extra characters to choose from. I won't bother talking about starships too much and the supporting characters too much at the moment, because I do one day hope on adding more to this. So let's go. So as I said, you can have a mixed species. You can row for some of the species. So the ones in the core rule book, the ones in the Alpha Quadrant book, and the ones in the Beta Quadrant book. So if you want a bit of randomness, row for it. I think the row system is great. I may use it once or twice here, but probably won't do it too much because I want to show you what is available. So there we are. Let's go select species. So I want to. Okay. In the core rule book, they don't actually show us this many. I was expecting 6 species. So I'll go through all the ones that it gives me options for, but I'll tell you which ones are from the core rule book. So Andorian, Bajoran, and Betazoid are all from the core rule book. So if you can't remember what those are, Andorian with the blue antennae, Bajorans are a very religious species. So if I've mentioned DS9, they are very prevalent in that. Betazoids like Diana Troy. Borg, not in the core rule book, but you would have probably if you come across Star Trek, you would have come across them. I'm just going to go skip to the ones in the core rule book. The Nobelin are, humans are, of course. Tellarites and Trill and Vulcans are. So Tellarites, you would have seen a few of them on Enterprise, and they did appear at least once on the original series. So I think they're very looking, so like type of species. So as in humans are very monkey orientated, so like primate type animals. So going on to Trill, so that's like the Daxes, Ezri and Jadzia and Curzon and all the others which I can't remember the name. So they have the spots going down the side of them. Vulcans, we all know about Spock. So I'll tell you what, I don't usually pick a human, but I'm gonna actually no, let's do somebody different. So who shall I go for? Because I am a fan of Dr. Fox, let's go for a Nobelin. So I'm going to go fast through some parts because this is not a how to do it one, but this is going to be trying to do some bits to help. If there is anybody in chat who wants me to slow down a bit, please say. So when you're doing character creation, or at least when this is doing it, this is going through the life path system. It's getting you to start at the beginning of your life and going, what did I learn at various stages of my life. This is going to be the early stage of my life, so I'm going to pick something that I can learn from that. I'm probably, as one of the have talents for various species, I'm going to say I'm going to go for one of the Nobelin ones, which are the cultural flexibility or parent figure. So cultural flexibility is your people are friendly, patient and inquisitive, and are exemplary. And you exemplify these traits. You are at ease when meeting new cultures and adapt with familiar social structures easily. And there is a thing you can do which I'm not going to describe now because unless you know the game, it probably won't make any sense to you. Now the other one is not personal effects, parent figure. Now, if you didn't know, Denobulans, they have huge families. Either they're married to three people, so imagine how many children these can have. So these people could potentially have. So you have a large family with many children, nieces, nephews, and have learned how to coordinate even the most unruly and fractious of groups when necessary. When there's a thing when attempting tags. I'm going to just say I'm from a big family. So for this one, yeah, what kind of family your upbringing? What was like? What did I learn from my upbringing when I grew up? It's maybe worth singing. What did I learn from that? So, as this is saying, Starfleet officers can come from many places across many worlds. So let's see. I'm going to say sector environment just so I can show you. So you can have your character come from a busy colony, a frontier colony. So right next to the border, busy one, self-explanatory. Home world. So for humans, it's Earth. If you're, let's say, doing D&D, this could be the main Elven city or the main Dwarven city or the capital of your country that you are living in. Also, you could isolated colony. So this could be a island in the, if it was D&D, an island in the thing. When we're going through these are what you're going to be answering when you're doing world building, or at least when I do it and I ask my players to do it, is what was your upbringing like in these places? What did you learn from this? You've got another one which is starships and star bases. You could have this one that you were brought up on an army camp or a navy port, or you were on a ship that sails around the world and delivers stuff. Now there's a lot of selections here that is like you're brought up in another species world. There's got a list of all the species here. Now, if you're bringing this to D&D, for example, was your character brought up? Were in a different city run by a different species? So, are you a dwarf brought up in an elven world, or an elf brought up in a human world, or a halfling brought up in a giant's world? Go ahead. So, again, when you're doing this, think about what would your character get from this experience. It could be a very much a dislike for where they got brought up because they're all different, or their personality has become more friendly to us. So they could be a dwarf, but they could be more elvish if they're brought up in the elf. Even though the elves may think, oh, they're still dwarf, they're still a dwarf. So let me think. So let me see. I'm gonna say my character, my Denobulan, was brought up on another species world, so a Klingon's world. So this is asking me what attribute I would pick from three of them that I got from there. So maybe when you're picking your stats or your spells in D&D, you could think about what of these are helpful. So you could could decide on that. So I'm going to say, when I'm working with Klingon, I think daring would be something that I'm using when it comes to that. So next thing I'm going to do is pick a discipline. It's not really important for this a general conversation, but I'm going to say, when you come in to do this, what did you learn on the Klingon homeworld? By the way, hello Captain Quinn, I hope you are well. So welcome to my stream. So far I've gone over some things before about how to get inspiration from your world. How to get inspiration from where you live and put it into your own world. But at the moment, because I've gone through those, I'm going to go through. I was going through how to involve how the Star Wars, very bad of me. Kill me now. Star Trek stuff can affect how the character creation can help you in other schemes, other character creations like D&D. So yeah, thing is, worrying thing, Quinn, I've been a Star Trek fan longer than I've been a Star Wars fan, and I shouldn't make those mistakes. Yeah, but it happens. So while I was on my Klingon planet, what kind of job did I learn? So these are the Star Trek jobs that you usually have, but in let's say in your D&D, what kind of things were, let's say you're a dwarf, what did you learn in the elven city that you got brought up in? I'm going to say, I'm thinking security. You have to be very tough when it comes into that, so I would say let's go for that. Now, values. This is a great thing, I think, in Star Trek Adventures, and even though this is not on D&D, I think it is a great thing that you could add to your character when you write them up, is what values does your character have? So on this, I'm going to say I would have probably brought up in Klingon, would I have brought up any Klingon traits, any Klingon values? Actually, as Captain Quinn is in chat, what on my Klingon world, what would my Denoblin have learnt? What would one of his values be that would sound Klingon-y, or maybe he would have learnt on his planet? So there are some typical, very friendly. I'm going to go with something like that. So yeah, you can go with something like that. Say always friendly. So I'm going to say, yeah, that's your one of your values in D&D could be, yeah, always friendly. So you're always being nice to the customers if you're selling stuff, or to the shopkeeper, rather than being a murder hobo. So always good. So just to show you, I think I'm going to go into select upbringing, but again, when I created my last character, I know Captain Quinn knows in chat, but I tried to roll with it. It adds to a bit of fun and makes you think about what you're doing. But let's select an upbringing. So where are we? So you got, in these ones, it's got agricultural or rural. So you could use that in D&D as well. To the same thing. Was your upbringing, artistic or creative? Did you have painters in your family, or people who make statues? No, again, business or trade. Could you be selling stuff or making stuff for the Federation or for another world? Could you be making Klingon weapons, like bat lifts maybe? Now if this is D&D, you could got brought up in a shop maybe. And thinking about business or trade when it comes back to Star Trek, I'm having another mind blank. The pilot in Enterprise, Mayweather, he was a boomer, so he got brought up on a ship, and they were traders. Diplomacy or politics, Europe problems there. So example is he was eventually Captain Spock, but Commander Spock, his dad was a diplomat, and he got brought up in a political world. Science and technology, so that's easier to explain in Star Trek, but again, if you think about it in D&D, the technology is something different. It could be a cart, could be something sciencey, so that could be what you do when you're doing spells and concoctions that they put together, or for medicine when it comes to the D&D world. So how would that influence your character and their upbringing when you see that coming around? Now Starfleet, of course, that's not in D&D, but you can have it be in the army or the forces or a sailor. Yeah, certainly could be Captain Quinn, who says, isn't magic the combination of matter and energy? Could be, but why wouldn't they? Maybe they could in your world call it the sciences, try to work it out. Science came under a lot of things I know in old Irvin, human history, so yeah, why not? But you can use science for whatever description you decide you think it's called in D&D. This is just a broad outline, but you probably got other explanations for it. Yeah, that's the Marvel explanation. Unfortunately, I haven't watched enough Marvel, but yeah, why not? So you've got 4 in it. You can easily have 4 in your D&D world. So there's a crossover in a bit. But you can add to that you can take over, but it gives you a broader sense of the world. I'm going to go business and trade for this one. I'm not really worried about it, which I picked so far, but it's just to give you examples later on. Now, I don't know what you were like as a child out there, but sometimes you didn't always go along with what your parents did or were saying. Sometimes you rebel. So just thinking, did you rebel against that, or did you accept that upbringing? Did you run away and become an adventurer in D&D because you didn't want to be a trader or a businessman, or you are a businessman and a trader and you've accepted that, and that's the reason you adventure? So think about it. That is something that is always worth considering when you're creating your character. Yeah, I've heard a version of that Captain Quinn, so yeah, you cannot add more matter to a universe or take it away, so the magic you use is what's there. I've heard a similar thing with science, and when it comes to, let's say, Star Trek, when it comes to like the shapeshifters, then I know people have mentioned that when let's say Odo has become a different size species or object, that the mass might be wrong, or is that, in my head, is there a different way to it? I don't know. It's definitely worth considering, and it's an interesting topic. So, I'm going to say my character accepted that, and what disciplines did he add when he was doing trading and stuff like that. He could become a more authoritative character because of that, with his command skills. He could have learned certain sciences here. He could have also be an engineer, so if he was on a starship trading stuff like Mayweather, he would have learned how to fix stuff as he went along. I like that answer. He was fixing stuff as he went along on his starship, so I'm not going to worry too much about the talents. Well, actually, I probably will. So, he was a trader or something, or seller of stuff on a Klingon world. He learned a bit about engineering while he was doing this. What talents would he have picked up? Because it's Klingon related, I'm just going to say tough general. This one helps you or injury, but as I said, I'm not here to teach you about this one today. This is what I'm just helping with logistics. Now, another thing in Star Trek that's good is the focuses, where you can specialise in certain areas. Now, you probably can't, you can use it a bit in D&D this, but having it maybe that you've learnt certain things with spells, you can use these focuses as spells maybe, or that as a part of your backstory you've got some more expertise in certain areas. So, looking at the suggestions there, I think finances is a good thing, especially as I'm not Federation, and I could be a Federation citizen, but I'm not on a Federation planet, needing to get my head around stuff. So you could say your character, if this was D&D, has a little bit more financial knowledge, so because of your upbringing, that could be part of your backstory. Now, with this, so whether you're listed or not is not really can't really bring that too much into D&D unless you want it as your part of your backstory. But I'm just going to click on select officer track on this. So this is basically saying what kind of job area you were in. Maybe this is thinking when you were young in your D&D world, where you're level 1, what did you learn when you got brought up? Because this is all going to be about the academy in Star Trek. So what did you train what did you get schooled in? If you got schooled when you were young, did Dad give you an apprenticeship in what he was doing in the leather makers or the tanners or whatever? Maybe this is something that you should be brought up, or what did I, because I'm a magician, not a magician, you're a magic user, you could have gone to some sort of magic school, possibly, in your world. It's all thing. I've used engineering so far, so I'm going to say operations. I like the sound of that. Now, when I do this, I'm thinking operations track. What did I learn at the academy? What did I pick up? What did I get better at? Did I go to the gym a lot? So with my fitness, did I learn a martial art? My main ones in here are engineering and security for this, so I probably should learn something from this. Now, I'm going to say I seem to have had an eye for engineering, and I'll go into the next one later, on the next two. So I'm going to just say I've got a chance to have a proper play with stuff in the engineering, so I've learned to work with wires and stuff. so my character is a lot more control orientated. I know with the stats in Star Trek Adventure is different to D&D because you have to roll for them, but it is something. If you just think of the titles of the attributes when you're thinking of D&D, I don't know where I was going on that one, to be honest. Just think about it. Yeah, so that's the thing. All we need is a bit of spit, gaffer tape with a bit of double WB40, and then well away. WD40, yeah. That was it. You even got me saying it wrong there. So, there we are. Actually, no, I'm going to say because of my stuff with the Klingons, I'm going to just say I maybe trained them some fighting thing when I was school, whether it be boxing or wrestling or something like that. Now, focus is. Again, I'm not going to worry too much about this one because we're not doing this to. I'm not doing this to show you how to create a character, but I'll tell you what, I'm going to just use the stuff here. So let's just say computers, hand to combat, and let's say transporters and replicators. But yeah, maybe if, let's say, I know I've used magic users before, and let's think about a fighting class in D&D. What did they learn? What were they bringing up? You could say that your character was got brought up in the fighting pits of Karak-Dor, and in the fighting pits it was hand-to-hand combat, so your expertise is in hand-to-hand combat, so you would go more orientated towards fighting with your hands if you could, even though that probably wouldn't necessarily give you any extra stats in D&D, but it's just something that you could use to make your character you. Now, let's go talents. So this is something I would have learned at the academy. So if you did in your job as, let's say if we're using it in D&D world, when you got brought up doing your apprenticeship or at school, or when you ran away from your parents and had to live by yourself for a while, what did you learn? This is something that in other games you may not be able to directly put over, but it's something I would say you should consider if you want to make your character better. I know I'm giving out a lot here, but I think it certainly can add to it, add to your character. So I want to say I learned how to jewelry rig stuff because I had to make something up on the spot. So again, values. So, let's have a go. I'll put this out to chat again. Captain Quinn, I think, in chat, and if anybody else is, what do you think my Denoblin value is that he picked up at the academy? So it could be something to learning, it could be something from his fighting, something engineering. Just trying to think. Ooh. Let me kind of get my brain together so I can come up with an answer. Why am I having so many blanks? I'm thinking it might be so I'm thinking something to do with the jewelry rigging earlier. So I've just realised I've lost my chat menu. I'll try to get back to that a second. There we are. That's back. I'm going to say something like everything can be fixed. So you could have that. Ooh. I'm going to say bring something that you can use in another game. Every option, every object has multiple uses. So I think you could use that in every world. So in my one, if it's engineering, it could be you don't have to have a spanner to tighten something up. You can use something else. If it's in D&D, let's think about the fighter again. They happen to have dropped their weapon, they can use something else to do that instead. And every single time when I do my character creations here, I forget about my extra bit here. So there we are. So select a career. I'm just going to roll a career here because it's not important, but thinking about it, in your D&D world, what jobs have you had before? What was your job before you came adventuring? And if you have left it, why have you left that? I'm not going to worry about too many more values at the moment because I think I've labelled the fort for that. So one thing I do like about this is select a career event. This is something that's happened in your life. You could use this, I think, in not quite one-to-one, but very close if you're using this in another game. So Pathfinder, D&D for example. Ship destroyed. This could be a staging ship if it was D&D. Death in a family. I know that's one of the tricks for D&D is everybody's has a family member who's died, but you don't have to have it. You could have it. Could be anybody. Death of a friend. How did that involve you? Let's say lauded by another culture. If we're bringing this to Lord of the Rings, that could be Gandalf. Negotiated a treaty. You can definitely bring that into your D&D campaign if you wanted to. So that's been something of my backstory. Bear in mind, if you're a level 1 character in D&D or Pathfinder, some of this may not be relevant. Or let's say it was a negotiated treaty, you could be a minor part in it, or you could be there when your parents did it, or a friend. Serious injury, you can have that at any time. That's self-explanatory. And how does that affect you with affect you in the game? Encounter with a truly alien being. Okay, this is one's really for like the sci-fi adventures, but if you had it, you could have that as being a monster instead of an alien in D&D thing. What was your reaction when you saw this monster? Conflict with a hostile culture. Again, self-explanatory. So, but these go over various things. I won't read them all out because there is a long list, but you could use these in any game as long as you first change that slightly. Thinking about it, the one I've stopped at, first contact there, that would be you could still have that. Yeah, if you talk with your DM, maybe you've come across a new island before, maybe where you've landed and become an adventurer. Your first contact was with that, and you are an alien species that's not often used, and you've gone, oh hang on, who are these humans and elves? But that one, it's a bit stronger to harder to bring into D&D, but you could. So, and again with this is asking, what did you learn from that speech, that event in your life? So, how could you bring that into the game? So, I'm just going to say diplomacy for this one. So, you know, I did say I was going to finish at 10 o'clock, but I'm going to finish this before I before I go any further. So I'm going to roll the career event. Oh, death of a friend. So, I'm going to just again skip over this one because I've already used that before. I'm just going to fill out my stats on here because these if I was doing this normally, I would think a lot more about how I was placing these, but I'm not worried too much. That's interesting. 4 command, 4 engineering, 4 security. Again, values, I'd think about it a lot more. I'm going to finish here. So, yeah, names are interesting actually. As my character was brought up on a Klingon world, maybe he was born there. So maybe, despite being Denobulan, and let's say, and I'm not a half species, my parents were Denobulan. Maybe they went, oh, we were born, you were born on Kronos or another planet. Why couldn't we give you a Klingon name? So you could be a Denobulan with a Klingon name. It's a bit unusual, but I do like unusual stuff. So when it comes to my character creation, I am a bit weird in that. Sorry, I got that screen up. So I'll save that one. So there we are. So I'll probably put a few things, how I would put that into my world. At the moment, with who's chatting, I'm going to go to anybody in chat who wasn't here at the beginning. Do want to go over what some of the bits that I may have come across done earlier. So no, so Captain. So I'm going to say Captain Quinn, because I can see you in chat. I think if you're still there, do you want me to do one last thing from earlier on in the stream, or what would you like me to do? Why have I got that up on my screen now? There we are. Okay, in that case, I'm going to call it a night. Thank you for watching. Hope you all have a good week ahead of you, and see you later.